welcome to another Coffee with Conrad. Today, we're going to be talking about IT vendor consolidation and how working between either multiple point solutions or with a single vendor can make or break your IT budget, as well as different difficulties that you'll encounter along the way. How you doing this morning, Conrad?
I'm doing good. Doing good. You know, I'm over at the beach right now in San Diego. Not really on the beach, we're pretty close. And for those of you that haven't been to San Diego or that have been here, but maybe not through the wonderful months of May and June, there's a statement here called May Gray, June Gloom. So if anytime you decide to come out to San Diego, May and June are not the best months to go. January, you'd get more sun. Still nice out here though. But anyway, thought I'd share that since we're talking about coffee.
That is true. It was drizzling a little bit this morning here in City Heights.
Mm. Yeah, it's good. No, when we talked about this topic before, it's always, we had a previous coffee with Conrad where we talked about, being able to divide and conquer, right? Where, traditionally you can get a managed service provider who's like, I'll take care of everything, your desktop, your servers, whatever. But they're typically, not great at any of it. Right. And they will say yes. And like, oh, sure. You want this brand of whatever. And they're running around. Same thing with IT organizations. I think internally they'll do the same thing. Businesses are just so used to like, I want this. I'll do this. But it's normally inefficient. They don't get the specialty that you want. It's just a grab bag of stuff and it's not way. So being able to kind of divide it up in terms of your expertise of the people and the services that you get are ideal, to kind of get the best of what that is. And it's important, like it's a big part of our culture to challenge our customers in a way that's productive and respectful, because if they say, well, Conrad, can you do Veeam for us? Like, no, I mean, we're smart, we can figure it out, but we're not Veeam experts, but we're Microsoft experts. And so we'll focus on Microsoft cloud specific things. And I think that'll in the end yield a better service for you. So, one of the things so as we're saying, you should split that up, there's other areas where you do want to try and consolidate because you have a lot of duplication of effort. So it isn't that there can be only one. It's not Highlander here, but it's the fact that you can get the right specialty of things that you need to make it work better together and to reduce costs. So some of the things around when you have multiple solutions. So and I think historically when we look at IT, the history of it, you normally, there wasn't one provider or one set of technologies that could really do it all for you. It just didn't exist. From hardware to your operating system, to your desktop applications, to your data, your services, there just wasn't. As much as, I've spent 7 years at Microsoft and I love it, we still didn't do everything. And we didn't do everything well. So you needed a VMware. You needed stuff like AirWatch. You needed other management tools. You just had to have this proliferation of technologies to kind of get what you want. And we've learned to have these categories of like best of breed. But what often happens is that these things are not intended to really work all together. They're meant to work. I run on this version of the OS and I can't support this one thing. And then this does another and this does another. So you have this like cobweb of technologies and services, and it's often why when IT invests into these environments, they spend a lot of money, a swell of effort of people to get it running, and then they leave it for the next 5 to 10 years. And then over that time, it is quote unquote running, but you build all of this technical debt, right? And that technical debt is, well, I'm 2 versions of the OS behind. I have this other thing that's working. And sometimes I get it. People say, well, I'm saving money. But what they're really saying is not that I'm just saving money because I don't want to buy the next version of the license, but what they're saying but not saying is, but then I have to do this whole thing all over again. So it takes my focus, that costs me money. I have to put time and energy, that costs me money. And when I do these things, when I do make those efforts, it's an opportunity for the CIO to look bad. Right? I mean, I don't think many people think about it, but when it's running and it's all good, it's like, man, CIO, you're doing a great job, right? Like system's up and it's running, like, I look good. until the time that thing runs out of support or it starts to break and break down. But now I'm forced to go do it. So now I have to deal with it, but they often won't do it. So, but it's hard, like I get the plight of the CIO in this space because, it's such a monumental effort to go do these things. And sometimes it's just email. It's just a file server. It's just something else. But they all tend to add up. And you also know that during a migration or when there's something going on, it's like, well, it's not the Microsoft OS side of it. We think it's a hardware issue. You call Dell. Dell's like, no, it's probably OS. Like, oh, it's probably the driver issue for the other appliance. No, it's not that. Maybe it's the Oracle issue, the line of business. Like, nobody cares, all the vendors, because they're just like, well, it's not my responsibility. And so you'll burden your IT staff or a consulting company to just pay for the headache. And in the end, you hate paying for it because I didn't get any new business value out of it. We didn't improve. It just fixed whatever it was. And it's normally something minute, always is, what the issue is. So, you have to go through these things. And also the support costs, you have to pay for the pleasure of having that ping pong type of support world, right? I mean, so I'm just painting this picture of the history, how we got there, the support, all of these things that we have to do. And then it just compounds on top of that because you still have to pay for all of the licensing and all of the services, and it's hard to make sense of it. So what most people do, they create their own spreadsheet, joy of calculators for licensing. Anyway, that's how you kind of get here. Nobody likes it, but I find that many organizations are just so used to it. It's like, not to make light of it, but it's like somebody who's in an abusive relationship. Like, I know it's bad, but I'm kind of used to it right now, and I don't know what's out there, and maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. No, it's not. It's not right. You don't have to stick with it. There are other options. You should move on. Listen to your friends. Okay, so from a single vendor solution, really, it isn't that again that there's going to be one vendor that does it all for you. There's going to be a few vendors that do the most for you. So if we look at on the Microsoft 365 side and Azure, you now have a vendor that's doing so much for you, right? So one of the first places you get is you're gonna say, oh, Microsoft licensing is complex and it's tough, and yeah, it has its challenges, but we're here to help. But you get to simplify it into one grouping of licensing that can span across a wide variety of services, from your security services, from the mail services, to your compliance, data collection, auditing. There's so much that you can get out of it. And the benefit first is simplified licensing, because you say, well, Microsoft difficult. Yes, but yeah, I'm not going to do Microsoft and 5 other ones, which makes it hard to rationalize. Some do compute, some do storage, some do this. You just get to start figuring out for one. But then the second part is these products are intended to work with one another. Support, yes, nobody likes support, but there's very, very few people that are like, oh, I love working on support. There are good support organizations out there, but you normally call support for things not working right. So anyway, but at least the point there is, even if you go through Microsoft support, they are responsible for all those services. They can't just say, oh, it's not our technology, and throw you off the hook. Will they pass you to another department? Will they do something else? Maybe, but they're still the one place that you're going for. And again, these products are intended to work with one another. So and the thing here is that if you will reduce your number of vendors. So if you say, well, what can I remove? And what's also really important for a lot of those customers, probably many that join here with Conrad, is the licenses that you buy. We find this with a lot of customers. The licensing that you purchase, you probably purchase in a way that makes the most sense for you, because it gives you access most likely to like email and the other services that you have. But you also probably bought a suite that gave you a little bit more. And you bought it that way because, it gave me some extra security, but there's probably other stuff that's in all of your licensing that you're probably that you're duplicating, paying for something else. And, and you might already have a plan to move off of it and move into the Microsoft world, But if you haven't, you should look at it and be critical to it. And yes, some customers say, well, but we're using, Trello and Monday, and while we know Teams has Planner, you're duplicating your efforts, you're duplicating your training, and it's going to cost you money as an IT organization. If you're in IT, in the end, it will create more havoc for you. And the other part is, how do people kind of move them off of there? Not to say here's the biggest trick for IT in order to help influence the business to get from those other applications into something that is in their current Microsoft license, is we can't ensure the security, the support, and if you're in compliance when they use those other tools. We cannot do it. Can you figure it out? No. Right? Not that you couldn't figure it out, but sometimes you just can't technically do it because it's in a separate organization, and the cost to actually doing that is going to be greater long term than it is to probably move them over. And that cost effectiveness of that transition is going to be important. And the other reason why you don't want to do that, those one-offs of can't you go figure it out, that can you figure it out, I'll tell you, is normally tied to a specific person. There's somebody in IT who has figured it out, and they either get promoted and then they leave. The knowledge goes away, the capability goes away, and you're still left very vulnerable. So that's normally why I would say no. Could you do single sign-on to it? Yes, but can I do all my other data discovery, compliance, import, and all that? Maybe there is a way to work it out. But again, some person will figure it out. They'll hack it out. They'll run a script. They run from their laptop. Person leaves. They format the laptop. They have no idea what's happening. Anyway, so those types of things make it very challenging. So again, if you can put it on your license, that's great. And if you get fewer of those services, so if you do Workday for something, like, great, try and maximize what you do for Workday. If you use, you have all your stuff in Salesforce, like, great, maximize the stuff in Salesforce. I know there's Dynamics 365 here, but whatever you pick, but make them fewer, make sure that they work with one another. And then from a consultative perspective, there again, I would find a reduced number of partners that you would work with that have clear focus. So for us, we have clear focus on Microsoft Cloud Services. That's where we're just going to do a phenomenal job for our customers, and we play well together in the same sandbox with other providers that do a better job on site with your printers, with your Wi-Fi, with your networking. Other people that do great with marketing, web designs, and sales and promotion, great. We work well with them. So working in the areas that do the best and the platforms they have are the best. And so we'll give you the ideal type of overall environment. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today was, so it's how do you reduce it down to these kind of single vendor solutions that provide greater capability, leverage it as much as you can, have that kind of clear focus versus I'm going to buy the quote unquote best of breed of everything that's out there. But then now I have to be the best of breed connectivity, because they just don't all play well together. And quickly in time, you'll be right back to where you were. You can still have this problem in a SaaS-based world. Moving your stuff off-prem, doing the servers, doesn't remove that responsibility for the customer, complexity for the customer to, reduce focus on what you need to go do. Anyway, that was kind of what I thought I'd bring up today. It's one obviously you can feel. I mean, are all my coffees with Conrad this passionate? But these are places you can do to have better focus on what you're gonna go do.
Thank you, Conrad. Now, I want to quantify something you said, because you said even moving into SaaS, you still have to do this. And I've seen it compounded in SaaS. Now, I come from the marketing side of things, and you talk to digital marketers, and we love to talk about our stacks and what software we use and how we have it interoperating, and what are we using as our general hub, and what are we using for email, and how we track everything. And I had a situation where we had 17 different marketing platforms. All of them were SaaS. Nothing was running on-prem. And one of our engineers had gone in and tied in APIs with a email automation system. And it was a beautiful automation. It tied in with our software that we produced, that we sold to customers. We were able to market people to people based on their actions and interactions with our software. And one day our accounts payable team missed a check, and there was a problem with that SaaS platform, and they deleted our account. And I wound up talking with the CEO. I was so mad. Like, what? Seriously? Like, just an immediate deletion? Oh no, we'll get it all back. We'll make it all good. Well, they got it all back. They made it all good. They gave us 2 months of free service. But when they deleted the account, they also deleted all of those automations, which took about, I would say, 10 hours of an engineer building out. And our entire marketing program fell apart in less than 24 hours because we had relied on these automations. And with a single vendor, you do have, I think, a perceived idea that there's a single point of failure. And I've heard that from people before. And it's really when you're talking about a company like Microsoft, and what I could thinking about is the partnership, because I use Adobe software extensively, the partnership between Microsoft and Adobe. And that in the first slide where we talked about the split in support and getting engineers to talk to each other. Well, when you're working with a vendor as large and powerful as Microsoft, they probably already have agreements, integrations, and probably specialists within the organization that can work on those integrations and interoperability for you. But I think that in SaaS, you see it even worse because you're trying to get Slack to talk to Trello, and then there's a change in the API and it quit talking, and you don't have anybody in the organization to do it. So you have to bring in a systems integrator, and it's awful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, overall, there's always going to be integration parts of it. I mean, that's just never going to stop, right? So I think your point's valid, right? Where because it can be compounded when you have lots of them, right? But if you're able to reduce it to have ones that, in your point, I think that they have some relationships with one another, obviously that makes it easier because you feel they're going to be responsible for you in the back end. But if I could have, instead of having 30, if I can have 6, right? Then it just reduces the amount of possibilities of bigger impacts, because it's a multiple, right? It's just not like if I add 1, I'm just adding 1. No, if I add 1, I'm adding it's a higher multiple, right? Of the ability that it's going to have error. So I think reducing it down, plus it gives focus. Again, the more of these SaaS-based services or on-prem you have, again, I always see that it's normally tied. There's like one magical person that figures it out. Been here for 6 years, then it's not the 7th, and so that adds to it. But yeah,
and then 15 years later, you're still running the same platform because nobody knows how to fix it. And like you said, it's any change to it is an opportunity for the CIO to look bad.
Yep.
Awesome. I am not seeing any questions up in the questions pane. Usually those tend to pop up as soon as I say that. But I think we are clear. And I don't have any closing thoughts. Do you, Conrad?
Nope, I'm good to go.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking about this, and have a great morning, everybody. As a reminder, if you're watching this online and not live, you can register to join us live at agilit.co/CWC. You'll also be able to see all of our previous sessions. And on YouTube, give us a like and follow, and we'll see you next week. Actually, I take that back. We will see you next Thursday. As Conrad mentioned earlier, he is at the beach and will be taking next Tuesday off for a clarity break to do more of the visionary and strategic side of business. So we will see you next Thursday.
Cool.
Thanks a
See you
lot.
then.